From just outside the press box at M&T Bank Stadium, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer live on a Thursday in August. Jonas, I feel like the Squidward meme. We are looking at SpongeBob and Patrick playing outside, but we are watching from a window, waving through a window, if you will, from Ben Platt's Broadway musical, Dear Evan Hansen. We are just outside the press box. We're not in the press box. We're not on the suite level, but we are on the concourse here at M&T Bank Stadium to wrap up the Ravens' preseason win over the Indianapolis Colts. We are going to talk about their stars, the standouts, the rookies that shined today, and what we got to see from this Ravens team in their first taste of the preseason. But Jonas, we do have to start with some unfortunate news, the breaking news after today's game. And that is that sixth-round rookie cornerback Bilhal Kone is out for the season. John Harbaugh announced it after the game. It was the injury occurred on an incomplete pass in the end zone in the first quarter. According to Harbaugh, he tore a ligament in his knee. Reports are that it was an ACL and MCL. Tough break for a guy who was fighting to make this roster. Certainly has a lot of talent, and somebody that potentially had a chance to factor into the Ravens secondary this season.
Yeah, I had him making the 53-man roster before the training camp started. Obviously, I think he was trending the wrong way. So was Robert Longerbeam, who, of course, did not play tonight as he's dealing with another injury. So it's obviously a bummer for him. You don't want to see anyone taken away from the game of football like that. It was definitely a grisly injury. So, to see him carted off, to see the air cast put on as quickly as it was, you got the sense that this probably wasn't your, run-of-the-mill knee sprain or rolled ankle or whatever. It did not look good from our vantage point. Unfortunately, the direness of that diagnosis, or our fears, was confirmed by the diagnosis. But this kind of stuff happens, and it's a shame that it what happened to a guy who Ravens officials felt strongly about. They loved his ball skills, they loved his athletic package, but this kind of stuff happens in the preseason. Just a couple days earlier, Justin Wally, I think third or fourth round pick of the Colts, who went down in practice, apparently tore his ACL. So it's just kind of an eye for an eye situation, and then this whole 3 days series with the joint practice and now the preseason game.
And obviously it's a reminder of why the starters don't play in the preseason, and why teams are increasingly cautious about how many of the regular players play during preseason games, because all it takes is one play for you to lose an entire season. And it's unfortunately what happened to Bilhal Kone. After the game, John Harbaugh, when he addressed the media, had Keaton Mitchell to his left. And, it was kind of an interesting dichotomy of a guy who had overcome a serious knee injury early in his career, in his rookie year, and now is expected to be a major contributor on this Ravens team and looks more athletic than he ever has. And somebody who, we'll talk about his performance today. And it was a kind of an interesting time when Harbaugh was describing Bilhal Kone's injury and talking about how the sun will come up tomorrow. And this is obviously very difficult for a rookie to go through, but he can point to another guy in that locker room in Keaton Mitchell. And there are other guys that have gone through serious career-altering injuries and put in the work and been fortunate enough to come out on the other side. So you hope that Bilhal Kone goes that same route as Keaton Mitchell.
And Keaton Mitchell, irony of ironies, might have to play in the preseason, maybe more. Well, first of all, play in the preseason at all. Second of all, probably play more than he would like, than John Harbaugh would like, than the Ravens fans would like, because of other injuries at that position. The Ravens only had to sign Jonas Johnson off the street as their, third string running back. And they might have to keep Mitchell engaged and on the field in the next two preseason games, because apparently Rasheen Ali, got a little nicked up in this game. Marcus Major Jr., a undrafted free agent who they signed and were counting on to just, get some snaps in this game, wasn't available for this one because he's dealing with his own concussion. So it's just, the kind of quirks of the sport that Keaton Mitchell, ideally you would have him be another guy wrapped in bubble wrap not have to worry about even, putting on the pads until week 1. But because of where he is, because of where the Ravens are, because of where the other guys are on this depth chart, it could be a situation where, he is playing past the first quarter in that next game against the Cowboys, in that finale against the Commanders. And that's a shame because he's a guy who I think, as we're about to probably talk about, I would, if I'm running the show and if I had my druthers, I'd say we saw more than enough tonight. We've seen more than enough in training camp. You're looking like a stud. You have that breakaway speed. We're good.
Yeah. We knew that not all 11 Ravens rookies that were drafted were going to make this initial 53-man roster. It seemed unlikely, and with each passing week that we don't see third-rounder Emory Jones Jr. on the field, it seems less and less likely that he's going to be on this roster when they get ready for week 1.
Not that they're going to cut him.
Not that they're going to cut him, of course, but that he would get an injury designation of some sort. And it's unfortunate that Bilhal Kone will not be on the initial 53-man roster as a healthy participant. But in terms of the cornerback situation, this was looking like one of the deepest cornerback rooms in the NFL. They've called it a greyhound position, a position where they draft and they add talent upon talent because they've seen so many injuries affect the talent at those spots. So losing Bilhal Kone obviously does not deal a huge blow to the Ravens cornerback room. It maybe clarifies a little bit of who's going to make this roster. We obviously know that Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey and Chidobe Awuzie are going to be locks. We know that Jair Alexander is going to be a lock. TJ Tampa, the fourth rounder, I should say, from last year, is played a lot in this game and is looking pretty darn good. So he's certainly as close to a lock as you can get. And then Jalen Armour-Davis, whether you call him a cornerback, whether you call him a safety, he played well in this game. He's had a strong camp when he has been healthy and is in the final year of his rookie deal, looking like somebody who is probably on the right side of the bubble now. Would you expect Jalen Armour-Davis to make this team? Obviously, with a few weeks to go, we still don't know. And would you also expect the Ravens to go with potentially 6 cornerbacks, or how do you expect that position breaking out?
I guess it depends on Robert Longerbeam at this point and just where he is health-wise. I don't think he's played or practiced for about a week and a half now at this point. He, believe, went up for a ball against LaJohntay Wester, 10 days ago at this point. I forget where it was, but, got the worst of that collision. I don't think he's played since. So you hope that his return to the field is sooner than later. But, talking about Jalen Armour-Davis, again, he's done nothing really besides lose a couple days of practice for that would suggest that he's not going to make the team at this point. I think he had at least 2 passes defended today. I think you could tell that the plan for him wasn't to play more than 1 or 2 series because he left the field with Malachi Starks, and then when Kone got hurt, he had to come back on. But again, he's a guy who's played on the outside, played on the inside. When I was kind of looking at what the Ravens were doing on punt returns, he's a guy who they have in their vice group, which is the guys who match up against the gunners, the guys who are trying to stop these guys from storming downfield and getting a run at your punt returner. And from my, uneducated eyes, he seemed like a guy who was doing a pretty good job at doing just that. So when you are not necessarily projected to be the guy who is getting big, a huge snap count as a actual defensive player, you have to make, as an actual, first or second string guy in this defense, the path to the playing field, the path to the 53-man roster, it is through special teams. And he's done that when he's been healthy. The caveat on that is just when he's been healthy. And even Zach Orr, he made no, he didn't beat around the bush at all. When we talked to him, I think 1 or 2 times ago, we said, if he's healthy, he's got a good shot of making this team. And I think he showed that today. Was he perfect in coverage? No. Was he better than TJ Tampa? When they were both on the field, it seemed like, yeah, he was better than TJ Tampa. But again, TJ has a cleaner path to this roster than Jalen Armour-Davis. But I think from everything that I've seen, from everything that other reporters have seen, from everything that the coaches have seen, it seems like Jalen Armour-Davis at this point, knock on wood, should be feeling pretty good about where he is in this depth chart to say nothing of where he now stands after Bilhal Kone has no shot of making this initial Z3.
This is plastic. This is not a wood table. Also, you got to give yourself more credit. You have a Maryland education. You do not have an uneducated eye, Jonas. You also were getting a lot of compliments from one of the workers here at M&T Bank Stadium who was complimenting your immense height.
Yeah.
You always managed to hit your head against one of the TVs in the press box, and she was just amazed. She said she hurt her head just looking up at you. Maybe she thought you were Cooper Rush.
Or maybe she was laying the groundwork for a lawsuit. Okay.
That's true.
We live in a highly litigious society.
Let's talk about who played, who didn't play in this game. Obviously, not very many starters out there on the field. And so when we get, the preseason used to be a taste and appetizer for the regular season. It is no longer that. It is just an opportunity.
Unless you live in Kansas City, in which case you're going to see Patrick Mahomes at every single preseason game you go to.
If you're in Baltimore, that's not the case. You're just getting a look at the rookies. You're getting a look at the roster hopefuls, and you're trying to see who might stand out. You're not getting a taste of what this Ravens team will look like. Nothing on the field that you saw tonight will in any way resemble the 2025 Ravens. We saw a little bit of Cooper Rush. We saw a lot of Devin Leary. Can't say the quarterbacks particularly shown in this game. John Harbaugh after the game said, was wondering if the combined 59 passing yards was a preseason record. I got to believe somebody's
in a winning effort.
In a winning effort, sure.
Yes.
We'll have our statisticians dig into that. It was not an impressive game from the two cornerbacks. You started off with Cooper Rush throwing an interception in the first pass attempt of the game. He ended up throwing just 4 passes, completing 2 of them. I believe Devin Leary finished 3 for 12 in this game. Not great numbers from him either. As John Harbaugh said after the game, just didn't go his way. We were not expecting this Ravens team to go with more than 2 quarterbacks. And we were very much expecting Cooper Rush to win this competition because the Ravens handed him a 2-year deal and he has NFL starting experience. And we just haven't seen a whole lot from last year's 6th-round pick and Devin Leary. Nothing would have changed our minds about that. The only concern factor here is that Cooper Rush has not looked great in camp. He does not flash a whole lot of tools, so it's not like, well, he's missing a lot of passes, he's not accurate, but at least he's a dual threat. He's not a dual threat. You just got to hope that the veteran will be able to figure it out if you call on him at any point, because he's going to make this team. You would think.
Yeah, and it was pretty funny to, within a span of a couple seconds, hear John Harbaugh talking about how, oh man, that was historically bad. And then a couple seconds later, you know what? But we still really like Cooper Rush. And boy, our coaches love how Devin Leary is practicing. And that may be totally true. It also may be a little bit of a half-truth.
Yeah.
No matter what you ask these coaches in the preseason, you're never going to hear them do anything to put a distressed asset in even more distress. Because at this point, everyone is an asset. Everyone is a fungible token that could be potentially moved on for, a 7th-round pick, a player. You never really know. But would I have liked to seen Cooper Rush play for longer than a quarter? Yes. Was I surprised that he didn't play for more than a quarter? Also, yes. But again, at this point, they want to see what they have in Devin Leary, I guess. But, there are plays to be made downfield that I thought Cooper Rush could have made if they'd kept him, out there for longer than the 2 or 3 series that he was available for. So it was disappointing. Clearly you see just the receiving stats that they finished with. When LaJohntay Wester is your leading receiver and the second leading receiver has all of 9 yards, you kind of shake your head. And again, the 3 for 12 for 43 yard stat line that Devin Leary finished with doesn't totally capture his value. I know that sounds crazy, but he did draw, a couple pass interference penalties, I believe, among the first dropbacks that he was out there for. But again, 3 for 12 for 43 yards, 2 for 4 for 16 yards, an interception for both, a total passer rating, just a summative passer rating of 28.1 is pretty funny.
Pretty putrid. Not a whole lot from the pass catchers, but you take it with a grain of salt when you saw the quarterbacks that were throwing to them. you only saw a few of the Ravens guys that are expected to contribute this year at the wide receiver position. You mentioned Tez. Tylan Wallace also got some play in this one. Charlie Kolar, who has had a nice camp as well, but nobody did particularly well with the exception of LaJohntay Wester. He is our winner of Who's Got It Better Than, or Who's Got It Better Than award goes to 6th round rookie LaJohntay Wester. Last week, by the way, went to Tyler Loop after he had the A+++ day at M&T Bank Stadium, but we forgot to hand that out. Or Who's Got It Better Than goes to LaJohntay Wester for breaking off an 87-yard punt return touchdown. Had a nice punt return on his first one, broke off the touchdown with a nice stiff arm in his second one, had a nice catch down the sideline as well, ball thrown by Devin Leary. Somebody who we really haven't seen a whole lot of in camp at the wide receiver position. He is somebody who is undersized. He is a 6th rounder. He has an incredible highlight reel, but how much of that is going to translate into to game action? He's also facing a difficult position battle ahead of him because he has a lot of established stars. But he showed tonight that the Ravens wanted to go out and address this punt return position. They wanted to get more dynamic in the punt return game. It was something that they struggled with so much last year. They may have found a guy who is going to deliver them that with LaJohntay Wester.
Yeah, and as John Harbaugh told us, I think on Tuesday, before you become a punt returner, you have to become a punt catcher. And LaJohntay Wester had no problems catching the ball, fielding these punts today. As far as I can tell, I haven't been going through all of the punt returns in practice with a fine-tooth comb.
Why not?
Because I have better things to do.
Debatable.
They're also true. He had like maybe one muffed punt about a week ago or 5 days ago, and that was something that Chris Horton, to his credit, did call out on the day that it happened after we, when we got him at that post-practice presser. But for the most part, LaJohntay Wester has taken care of the ball, and he's going to have 2 more games to take care of the ball. But again, in the same way that Tyler Loop did nothing to hurt his own candidacy for the kicking job, LaJohntay Wester, is it an ironclad grip on that starting position? Probably not, because there are so many things that you can do to lose the job at this point, by fumbling it, by not catching it cleanly, by, just doing dumb stuff. But nothing that he did today as a returner or as a receiver was counterproductive. He was incredible on that just absolutely jaw-dropping return. We made 3 or 4 guys miss, not necessarily in a phone booth, but still having the speed to kind of obliterate angles and pull away from guys and, and staying true to the kind of punt return angles. Because I think so many times, whether you're a running back or you're a returner, you can do things that lead to penalties. Like if you're a running back and you have a hole to hit and you bounce it and it leads to a holding penalty, you're not going to be the one who's penalized for the holding penalty, but ultimately it is probably more so your responsibility than the guy who got tagged with that flag. So I think LaJohntay did everything he needed to put any kind of doubt about who's going to be fielding punts there in week 1 in Orchard Park, New York. It's probably going to be LaJohntay Wester.
And somebody who if there were any remaining doubts about Keaton Mitchell and his ability to bounce back from his knee injury, how much stronger he looks, how much faster he looks, he put all those to rest with his performance today. 9 carries for 68 yards, a touchdown. Dynamic in the kick return game as well. That's a position that I think LaJohntay Wester, or if he makes the roster, will probably be the punt returner. Kick returner, that's something that John Harbaugh likes. This new format, he likes running backs in those spots.
Yep.
So maybe Keaton Mitchell might be the guy there, or one of the 2 guys back there.
Probably with Justice Hill.
Yeah, probably with Justice Hill. But Keaton Mitchell absolutely is flashing so much potential. As all the potential that we saw from him as a rookie, we are seeing yet again. And it is exciting to think about how this 3-man backfield with Derrick Henry and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell can look. And I understand, Jonas, that you have last year you gave him the nickname Tiny Horse after the Saturday Night Live sketch, the Timothée Chalamet. Are you waiting to reveal your next nickname?
Yes.
Okay. We'll save that for when he actually does something during a regular season game. But Keaton Mitchell, Jonas, looked great tonight.
Yeah, he did. Basically that, second, for the opening scoring drive for the Ravens, the 22-yard touchdown run that he capped things off with. You get the kickoff return, you get a couple minor runs, and then you basically end it with, I think it was a 21-yarder and then a 22-yarder. Maybe it was a 23-yarder and a 22-yarder, but still, to basically account for 75-80% of the yardage on that total, that total breadth of yardage that was needed to get into the end zone. Just really impressive. And again, the first long run that he had on that touchdown, that touchdown march was a zone run. The second one was a gap scheme run. So get a guy who can execute whatever kind of run you need to, be patient at the line of scrimmage, know when to bounce it, know when to hit the hole. Just really impressive. And it kind of matches up with everything that we've seen in camp. A guy who is patient, but also explosive in the open field, can break tackles. I think on both of those explosive runs that the Ravens had, there was at least one second-level defender that he just kind of discarded without much difficulty. And that's what you want to see. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what the snap counts end up being when we get into the regular season and you have this all-world running back in Derrick Henry, you have this quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who also in a healthy Ravens offensive ecosystem is getting some design touches, some non-design touches on scrambles. And how does it break out to be? How does the divvying up of touches work out between Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell? Because for as impressive as Rasheen Ali was tonight on special teams, I still think that it's more likely than not that the Ravens do not keep 4 running backs on that initial 53-man roster for the same reasons that the Ravens, probably won't keep Brent Urban on that initial 53. For the same reasons that the Ravens probably won't keep, I don't know. There's so many spots on this roster where it would be nice for the Ravens to have space to keep that guy that you like, but it's probably not going to happen.
So what happened at the end with Rasheen Ali? Because Rasheen Ali tonight had a very good night, I thought, at times. He obviously doesn't have quite the explosiveness that Keaton Mitchell has, but, I think still somebody that maybe weaker running back rooms around the NFL might be making the team as the third running back. Tonight he finished with 9 carries for 37 yards, but after the game, John Harbaugh mentioned that he was dealing with something minor. He said he had something at the end there. So,
yeah, I mean, like he was in good enough shape to finish off that drive that, again, he was kind of responsible for. He did not get taken out before he knocked in that 2-yard touchdown run.
Yeah,
late in the second quarter with 1:32 remaining. So maybe it was something he just kind of raised the flag for. He got the trainer's attention at halftime. Obviously, you have plenty of time to kind of do a better assessment of where these guys are. So you hope that he is hopefully going to be back out there at practice when we see him on Saturday. Obviously, the whole issue for him last year was that he just did not have a lot of time at training camp and in the preseason, because I think it was actually a concussion for him as well. So that's something that potentially, I don't want to speculate on where Rasheen is medically, but Marcus Major this year, Rasheen Ali last year. Head injuries are an issue for running backs because of where they put their heads. And for Rasheen Ali to be back in a physical environment like this, you just hope that everything's all right.
Yeah. Let's talk about one more note on offense, because there was one play that the video of went around the interweb. It was Daniel Faalele getting put on his butt while playing at right guard. We didn't see the entirety of the offensive line, the starting offensive line in this one. We didn't see Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. We saw Andrew Voorhees at left guard. We did not see Tyler Linderbaum at center. We did see Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. Daniel Faalele getting beat, looked like one-on-one, and allowing
by a reserve lineman
and allowing a clean path to the quarterback. We were hoping, a lot of fans are hoping that he is going to take a step forward this year. Not a great way to start the preseason.
No, and especially not after what Ravens fans kind of seized on from that televised or from that streamed joint practice here, where you see Travis Jones given violated the business. It's one thing for a ascendant, potentially maybe if things break right, kind of Pro Bowl talent in Travis Jones, to put Daniel Failele on his heels with a bull rush or a hump move or whatever it was that kind of got things messed up for Daniel Failele. But for a guy who a lot of Ravens fans probably had never heard of, and with a last name that I won't even bother to try to pronounce, it was a weird play because it seemed like it was almost like a kind of delayed pass rush where he was almost, I don't know, to be honest, I didn't really get a full look on it. When the Colts tweeted out the highlight of that sack, it was kind of right, like a half second almost after the ball had snapped. So you couldn't really tell exactly how Failele ended up on his butt, but he ended up on his butt. And that is if you want to find your way either out of the league or find your way to the bench, it is ending up on the ground, whether that's because of a lack of balance, because of a lack of technique. You just can't have that. And that is something that the Ravens coaching staff and the Ravens officials have pointed to as evidence of Daniel Failele becoming a competent pass protector, or more than competent pass protector in this league. Here's a guy, forgive me for sounding like Chris Collinsworth, but here's a guy.
Well, we have rolly chairs here if you're watching live on X, Facebook, or YouTube, so you could do the slide in for the broadcast. But I'll be around Michael's.
Here's a guy who's going to when you are in a kind of alley, when you are in a phone booth, you can protect Lamar Jackson. You can, just by sheer dint of having this huge, huge frame, protect Lamar Jackson. And what he did on that play was not Lamar Jackson, but Cooper Rush.
Yeah. Let's talk about the defense. Some standout performances. David Ojabo had a sack in this one, although it was a play where he was completely unblocked. Had not even a hand on him as he made his way to the quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Knocked Richardson out of the game, injured his finger. So he unfortunately did not get to see too much of the super athletic quarterback, and we saw quite a lot of Daniel Jones in this game. We saw, as you mentioned, TJ Tampa had a pretty nice game as well. He was targeted and allowed a completion on his first pass, but after that, he seemed pretty locked down, I thought. Trenton Simpson, a guy who played a lot last preseason, played a lot this preseason, seemed like he was flying all over the place and making a lot of fits in the run game. And then one I want to say, I was today years old when I learned out Ravens legend Laquan Treadwell is on the Colts roster. Amazing from him. But what did you see from rookie Malachi Starks as well, playing in his first game in a Ravens uniform?
Probably an absence of big plays against him, which as a safety is pretty much all you can ask for.
It's like an offensive lineman.
Yeah, exactly. Probably, I think a lot to like about this Ravens first and second year guys in general. You look at the QB hits, 7 total for the Ravens. I think just 3 allowed by the Ravens. 1 for Adisa Isaac, 1 for CJ Okoye, 1 for CJ Ravenel, who was a practice squad guy last year, who I think has flashed intermittently he made the practice squad last year. Will probably, I think, almost a shoe-in to make it this year, unless someone plucks him off the Ravens roster.
Has anybody ever been more born to be a Raven? Raven is in his name. I know it's Ravenel, but CJ Ravenel has Raven in his name.
No, but only because I remember randomly seeing like a women's World Cup game, and I think there was a French women's national team forward whose last name is Baltimore.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. Gotta get her here.
Yeah, right.
I mean, come on. I don't know how.
Get ready to learn three technique, bud. But again, 2 QB hits for Kaimon Rucker, who was a undrafted rookie, came in with some acclaim, bunch of productivity in the ACC. I think had a bunch of sacks for UNC. So to see him clean up, I guess, in the second half, while I was kind of had my head down, plugging away at my stories, productive, impressive.
Yeah.
But again, you got the feeling that whenever the Ravens were forcing a 3rd and long for the Colts, something productive was going to happen. And again, whether that's going to carry over when the Ravens first stringers are in is a entirely different matter altogether. But even when Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator, I like that there were preseasons when it didn't feel like the Ravens could do anything to get home with the guys who were leading the charge for this preseason pass rush unit. So for the Ravens to have guys like Mike Green, have guys like David Ajabo, Adis Isaac, CJ Ravenel, Fub, Aeneas frickin' Peebles, generate pressure from the interior, generate pressure from outside. I don't know. It was just like, I think you have to come away from that game feeling a lot better about what these guys could do for Zach Orr, whether it's the preseason, regular season, postseason. You just got to feel good about where these guys are.
Yeah, it was exciting to see. I think they gave Adisa Isaac full credit for that sack in the first half, but it kind of looked like Mike Green combined for the sack. They were both coming around the edges. And for the Ravens to get 2 day 2 guys, one from last year who missed a ton of the season last year with injury, came back, looks a lot stronger, worked a lot on his body. And then Mike Green, who obviously fell to the second round because of 2 sexual assault allegations, which he has denied, but has a ton of potential on the football field. Those are 2 guys that you feel like you feel good about the Ravens pass rush in the hands of these 2 young athletic guys and the future of this group that, David Ajabo is entering his last year. Odafe Owe is entering his last year. The Ravens have done this so well where they identify these guys to take, maybe not in the first round, maybe at the end of the first round like Odafe Owe, but in that range of, late round 1, day 2 guys. And right now it looks like they may have 2 guys in Adisa Isaac and Mike Green who are ready to contribute.
Yeah, and just I think a good job in general by this Ravens front. I think last year, you think back to here in this very stadium where the Ravens seemed like they just could not get their wits about them when they were kind of going against that outside zone, play action boot offense that the Falcons brought in here. It felt like it was just one misstep after another for the Ravens defense. But again, you look at what the Colts had offensively, it was just a couple field goals and 1 touchdown in the third quarter. And that was it. So I think you have to like where the depth of this Ravens defense is. Our colleague Gianna Hahn talked to a bunch of the Ravens rookies after, and I believe the Ravens, I think she tweeted that the Ravens trusted Teddy Buchanan enough that it was not Trent Simpson who got the green dot. And this is not a slam on Trent Simpson, who I think has had a very productive, very encouraging preseason, very encouraging training camp, but it was Teddy Buchanan who got the green dot. He was the guy who is communicating. He is the guy who is, the conduit between the Ravens defense and Zach Orr. So I think a really impressive showing that it is Teddy Buchanan who is going to be probably for the rest of this preseason calling the shots for this defense.
Let's talk about special teams. We talked obviously about LaJohntay Wester. Let's talk about Tyler Loop, who appears to have a completely clear path now to be the Ravens kicker after John Hoyland was released last week. Went perfect in extra points. Missed a 46-yard attempt.
I think 47.
Sorry, 47-yard attempt. Wide left, which I was talking to our own Childs Walker about it. He said that was kind of the knock on him coming out of college. When he missed wide left.
No, you're right, 46.
46,
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Never doubt me. But then bounced back and made a 52-yarder. Did I get that one right?
Yep.
Okay. Made a 52-yarder later. The length, the distance has never been the issue for Tyler Loop. He's got an incredible leg. The only thing is accuracy. And I believe when Chris Horton, the special teams coordinator, was talking, he said it was within 40 yards. He said like 80% of the Ravens kicks typically are within 40 yards. So 46 yards is outside of that range, but that's a range where you'd like to make it. But was good that he bounced back and made one from 52 yards. I think the Ravens still feel, and John Harbaugh said as much, still feel very good about his ability to win this job. And I don't think they were looking particularly hard at anybody on the street to bring in to compete with him.
Yeah, and just kind of a little look at how the sausage gets made. Obviously, we do our stock report for the BaltimoreBanner.com, and before the 52-yarder, Tyler Loop had it stock down. After he made the 52-yarder,
That life of a kicker.
yeah, stock up. So if you're split the difference, and if we're being honest, it probably was neither a stock up nor stock down for Tyler Loop. It probably was just status quo. But hey, if you are Tyler Loop, if you're a guy who's made well over 90% of your kicks in training camp, then status quo is good.
Yeah.
Status quo means that you probably don't have to worry, like you said, about someone coming in off the street, a veteran. Who knows? Maybe the Ravens bring back John Hoyland, but it is because they feel so good about Tyler Loop that John Hoyland is a guy who, becomes the next Corey Vedvik. He becomes the next guy who the Ravens can just pump for kicks. Potentially becomes a guy who they trade for a 6 or 7 round pick. But again, that's putting the cart before the horse. I would imagine the Ravens do not make any moves at that kicker position this week. I think it would take a really terrible performance in Dallas for the Ravens special teams to even consider bringing in a alternative to Tyler Loop. And whether the film bears us out or not, John Harbaugh told us afterward that it was a, quote, stub toe. That was the reason for Tyler Loop missing that kick. So I think you feel pretty good if you're Tyler Loop going to bed tonight.
What did that mean exactly? He stubbed his toe?
Just probably something with the, I don't know. Because when you're a kicker, you're kicking the ball with the instep. It's not like you're toeing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
We'd have to go back and watch the film.
Yeah.
Just like John Harbaugh. We are now past the midnight mark on Friday. We've already talked so much about this meaningless preseason game. However, we have plenty more coverage on the BaltimoreBanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months. Jonas Shaffer, Gianna Hahn, Kyle Goon, Childs Walker have much, much more for you there. Subscribe $1 for 6 months, and you should subscribe to the Banner Ravens podcast if you do not already, anywhere that you get your podcasts. Write us a 5-star review, and I will read it out here on the show. We will have another podcast for you at some point next week. Ravens are back at practice on Saturday, and they are preparing for their second preseason game at Dallas next Saturday night. So we will have coverage of that, coverage all week. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Jonas Shaffer, I'm Paul Mancano, and we will catch you next time.